Afternoon is Lori Gagan, and I am joined today with my dear friend and colleague, Kathleen Halal. So, before we get started on today's interview, which we are really quite excited on bringing you this information, I'm going to read the mission statement and then I'm just going to read the disclaimers. So, the Wellness Crusaders mission is to educate and empower you to make informed choices for your health and the health of our children, our communities, and our earth. We are committed to fostering a world where the balance between human health and environmental stewardship is respected and nurtured. We hope you will join us on this holistic and transformative journey as we work together to create a healthier, more harmonious world for all. And just a few short disclaimers for our listeners. So, we just want to make sure that the listener understands that the role of the health coach is not to prescribe or assess micro and macronutrient levels, to provide health care, medical, or nutrition therapy services, or to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease, condition, or other physical, mental ailments of the human body. Rather, the coach is a mentor and a guide who has been trained in holistic health coaching to help clients achieve positive, sustainable lifestyle changes. We are not acting in the capacity of a doctor, a licensed dietitian, a licensed nutritionist, a psychologist, or other licensed or registered professionals, and that any advice given by the coach is not meant to take the place of the advice by these professionals. If the listener is under the care of a health care professional or currently using prescription medications, the client should discuss any dietary changes or potential dietary supplement use with his or her doctor and should never discontinue any prescription medications without first consulting his or her doctor. The listener understands that the information mentioned in our talks should not be seen as medical or nursing advice and is not meant to take the place of seeing licensed healthcare professionals. So, we would like to introduce Blaine Melquest. Blaine and his daughter live in Nephi, Utah. Kathleen and I have been working with Blaine and his daughter for a couple of years on the spraying of toxic herbicides and pesticides that literally are poisoning that town and other towns around the country. But before we get started, I'm going to have quick short videos that I did today. I drove out to Nephi and we interviewed Blaine and his daughter. So we want to go ahead and we're going to play those first few videos. And then Kathleen has some really powerful questions that I think every one of our listeners is going to want to listen in. So, Leighton, if you want to play the first interview from this afternoon in Nephi, Utah. His name is Blaine, and he has been fighting the battle on the dangers of herbicides and pesticides that are being sprayed in Nephi that are making people sick. So, Blaine, I want to ask you, before we get into a few questions, why is the use of herbicides and pesticides your battle?
Well, first of all, I've taught high school chemistry for 35 years.
Okay,
I'm acquainted with the poisons and what they do.
okay,
And then we were sprayed so many times by so many entities in the government and in the private sector here that made us sick and made my daughter sick and in a wheelchair. And she's been there for many years. And so we got into finding out how much spraying it's unbelievable how many times places are sprayed and by how many units. we're sitting here in the city park. They spray the parks.
The city park where the children are playing. You can
We
see the
have-
swing set, you can see the swimming pool.
They spray all the parks. They spray the cemetery. They spray the roads.
Right.
We have a small open restaurant here where people could sit outside. They came down and sprayed through the area the city
So
did while my
basically-
daughter was eating her food.
So basically, as people are sitting at the local restaurant in hopes that they could be sitting, enjoying some family time, breathing good air, they're spraying these herbicides and pesticides. And I have to say that my website is stopsprayingglyphosate.com. And glyphosate is the active ingredient in Roundup that we know is making people sick. And we know that the science is proving it can cause cancer. But even looking at the label is reading that you should not be spraying any of these chemicals when you have wind speeds that exceed 1 mile per hour. Now we're out here, it's a beautiful day. The winds have got to be 1 mile per hour.
More
The
than
leaves,
that.
yeah, I mean the leaves are barely going.
They're supposed to go up to 14 today. I checked just a
So
few
if
minutes ago.
if these trucks in Nephi were to come and start spraying these herbicides, pesticides for mosquitoes even, which is the newest, biggest thing that just got passed through the state, we actually would be intoxicated by breathing the poison, the chemical poison that they've already proven that is dangerous to the average human. So, your battle is for your daughter. Your passion.
And all of our neighbors.
How long have you been fighting this battle? When
Oh.
did you begin this battle?
It started when she first started getting sick, but we didn't know why.
And how old was she, roughly?
18 years ago, so she would have been 1978. 26 years. we've been
Okay.
fighting. But we didn't know what was happening until 2010 when they sprayed for the rodeo.
Right, with the mosquitoes, which we are going to go down. We're going to do a short video. But you found a doctor, Dr. Brian Minch, and he is also fighting the battle at a bigger level than what we can possibly do, because he is also trying to bring the exposure for these toxins that are being sprayed that will kill the mosquitoes, but they're also harming our immune system, the immune system of our elderly, the immune system of our children, our pets that play in these beautiful parks. And one last question before we move on to the next area. Has the community, have you been down to your local town hall to express that there's dangers in this? And if so, what have they said?
Many times we've been, and including
So many times.
sometimes the last few months, and they tried to tell us that if you showed us 1,000 pages of how dangerous it is, we won't believe it, because the state sells us the pesticide and they wouldn't sell us, and herbicides, they wouldn't sell us anything that was dangerous.
So on these labels, which is basically reading that it's a hazardous chemical,
Yes.
that you should be equipped with masks that are professional masks, not some mask like an N95 that's not capable of protecting your immune system or even your lungs. And it's in the labels that are reading here. And it also states in here that as soon as somebody is done spraying, they immediately should wash their clothes because of the chemicals
Yes,
that are attaching to the
definitely.
clothes. So you spent years trying to bring this up, being ignored,
Yeah.
basically saying that the state of Utah would not be selling chemicals if it was hazardous to the people who live in the community, human beings that are actually out playing or sitting in these parks and these playgrounds, that they honestly would not believe that the state of Utah would not be selling them a product that could be dangerous to your health, which we all know has affected your daughter's health.
And also selling us the trucks, selling us spray to spray up our canyons where people are camping, spraying. UDOT sprayed through here a while back.
I kicked UDOT off my property when where they came in and they started spraying, and I
They-
said, listen, no more spraying.
they called me and told me they were going to spray here because the lady did tell when she was working there, and it was the last week of school, and all the children were walking from the school at the south end of town up to the Utah Daughters of the Pioneer Museum on by the Signal here in the center of town, and I tried to call everybody and let them know. The city didn't care. The lady wasn't going to contact the sprayers that were coming down, and the school already had the kids up there, so the kids had to walk back. So all that time they were being exposed to the spraying and the whole thing, and the people spray without telling your neighbors. The commercial sprayers spray heavily.
You know,
Everybody sprays.
One of the articles that I read with Dr. Bryan, basically, and your daughter wrote this, is that she feels she is being chemically raped. Her immune system has been harmed, her body has been harmed, she's wheelchair bound, and you can't get the community to at least read the labels and come up with alternative choices that are non-toxic. That is a shame, and it's happening here, right in the town, your town, to the community people that live right here in Nephi. So let's go on to our next place that they're spraying. Okay, Leighton, can you cue up where we're in front of the town hall, please? And thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm here with Blaine again, Lori Gagan from the Wellness Crusaders, and we're talking about the town of Nephi, the citizens that live in Nephi, and all of the pesticides and herbicides that are being sprayed that Blaine and his family can't get the town to listen to. So we are in front of the building Nephi City. You can see it's a city office, a library, and utilities.
And Juab County is behind us.
All right, and
the main building
is behind them. And so basically, Blaine, you have basically taken your complaint about the dangers of these herbicides, pesticides, how many times to the town?
Oh, we've been doing it a number of times through the
10
years.
10 times? 20
At
times?
least, probably more than 20.
More than 20 times.
To the county as well, many, many times.
So you've been taking the complaints, your daughter's wheelchair bound, 20 plus times, and you cannot get them to listen to you about the dangers of what the label itself is reading?
We try and go through the label, and they just said, we asked them to use natural, non-toxic methods, and they said, but the state doesn't pay for that. That's the county that says the state doesn't pay for that, and we have to use what the state wants us to use, and therefore it's safe.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
All
right. Okay, last one, Leighton. So Blaine, let me ask you, what are your hopes as we expose the town of Nephi on the dangers of these herbicides and pesticides that they're spraying that are harmful? What are your hopes for today's talk?
Our hopes is that we can enlighten them to the fact that they will realize that there are great dangers in the spraying. People are getting sick. People are dying. People don't know what's causing the problem because they're not telling them that they're spraying. They're not telling them they're doing it. And they're not telling them any dangerous problems. They're not being exposed to things.
Little technical difficulty here.
Everywhere, the people are not being told. And they're being told time and time and again in the paper, it's safe. And it's against the law to say it's safe.
So there you have it. So coming from a citizen of the community, where they've taken the complaints on the dangers of these herbicides and pesticides multiple times, 20 plus times, and he cannot get the town of Nephi to at least acknowledge that the label on these products like Roundup are dangerous to humans. Thank you, Blaine.
Okay.
All right, Kathleen, you are up with your awesome questions. Thank you, Blaine, today. It was a pleasure meeting you and your daughter. And we will continue praying that we can get some movement and get this going viral for you. So you're up, Kathleen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm muted. Nice to see you today, Blaine. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you
Thank
for
you
having
so
us.
much for having us.
And your daughter, who we're not going to name. I've been looking forward to speaking with you because
You too.
you're not alone in your concerns.
Thank
And
you.
I just wanted to start with some questions so you can kind of tell your story to everybody from the beginning,
Okay.
and they can understand what you've been going through.
Okay.
So my first question for you would be, when did you first get sick, and when did you connect your illness to the pesticide applications?
With the mosquito spray, they started in 2004 with the mosquito spray. I lapsed at the county fair and I had to be taken away. And we didn't know why they were spraying, but I had to be taken away and I had to have somebody else go get my exhibit from the fair because I was too sick to go back. And I just lost one food after another. I was literally starving to death and thirsting to death. I was down to the innards of onion. I was 80 pounds.
We can't hear you that well.
Oh, I'm sorry. In 2004, I collapsed at the county fair and I had to be taken away. I couldn't even go back to get my exhibit because I was too sick. That was the first time that the mosquito spray sprayed. So that was when I reacted to the mosquito spray. And
how did you find out that it was a mosquito spray that caused you to be ill?
I was on the floor throwing up over and over again, and he was seeing spray in my home. And I was so sick, I almost died that night. It is so terrible to suffer what the pesticides do to you. It's excruciating. There aren't words to describe it.
What I'm saying is, were they spraying around the county fair? Was that why you got sick? Did you see someone spraying, or when did you put it together?
At night.
They admitted they sprayed at the county fair after we found out in 2010 that they had been poisoning us all those years. And he was spraying my home in 2010 when it was reported to them. He had sprayed my home that night.
They actually had, I asked the people that were paying the bills when they started spraying, and they said in 2004 at the fairgrounds. And that was 6 years later that we were told that.
And I collapsed at the county fair. And
you didn't find out until 2010 that that's what had happened?
No, we didn't find out till 2010. They didn't tell us they were poisoning us, and we didn't find out they were poisoning till 2010.
So this was your first incident having something like this happen, and you're at the county fair and you passed out, and then you needed medical care. It was horrible.
Yes, and I react to all the pesticides. I've reacted to pesticides for a long time, the pesticides. So now I react to all the toxic pesticides.
Did you have any reactions prior to 2004?
Yes, I did. I used to work a place, they sprayed for insects, and I reacted when they sprayed. I also had reactions when I was younger. I had an infected tooth plus the pesticide going on, and I had to miss school, and other times I was pesticided. They went in and did surgeries and they found leaky gut from the pesticides, and they also went in and did a double hernia surgery because I was in so much pain for my stomach, and it didn't help because they were pesticiding.
So I guess what my question is, so that the 2004 incident was the first incident where you really got seriously ill.
It got worse, yes.
And then after that, after you were treated, did you have other incidents that came along where you would put together that they sprayed and then you were sick?
Yes, it was continual after that. Every time they sprayed, I can taste the poison. It tastes so horrible. It's like a mouthful of poison. And the pain is excruciating beyond imagination.
Wow. And does anyone else in your family have this sensitivity as well?
Yes, they do. And my family has major health problems from it. Hitler used an insecticide for war. It was used in the gas chamber and for war.
Well, a lot of people might not know that a lot of the commonly used pesticides and even herbicides come from World War II. What they
Mm-hmm.
did was they took those chemicals that they were using, like mustard gas and so on, and they came back to the States, and then they, you know, put them into agriculture for pest
Yes.
control and weed control. And now they're commonly used, but a lot of people don't know that sort of background, that they were developed by scientists to hurt people, and then they were put into use to hurt bugs and so on. So yeah, a lot of these chemicals can be very powerful. Many people don't have the kinds of reactions that you're having. You're like a human sensor for when
Yeah.
they've sprayed toxins.
Yes.
So tell me about when you first met the doctors who are supporting you. Can you talk about that? The
Yes.
medical group?
I met them while I was fighting it. The
Dr. Brian
doctor
Mensch called.
called me. I had been in the papers and I had been fighting it and begging for help, and he was a godsend. I had been praying because I couldn't handle it anymore. It's so horrible. Nobody would want to live through what I have lived through.
I'm really sorry to hear everything. But I'm very encouraged by the fact that this doctor and a group of doctors have studied what's going on with you and have come forward to protect the residents of Utah
Yes,
against
and they
these
fought
incidents.
hard.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the name of the group? And
It's the Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment. It's headed by Dr. Brian Mensch, and they're one of the biggest groups in the whole Western United States. And they have studied and they have spent countless hours documenting and sending letters, and they are just amazing how much they have fought for the people of Utah and me.
They have had rallies on the Utah Capitol about the air pollution and about a place called Stericycle that was burning toxic waste up above Salt Lake City.
They want to protect us. It's horrible what is going on, and I'm grateful for people that understand. And they have written so many amazing documents. I wish the people would read them. They'd understand the gravity of what is going on.
well, people can call them, right? Or they can reach out. What's the doctor's website again? Or what's the group called that they can
It's
go?
the Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment.
Utah
And
Physicians.
they do have a website, Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment.
Mm-hmm.
I did speak with him a few days ago, and I asked him if he might like to be on, but he said honestly that he has so much information that he'd like to prepare and be on another show and just have the whole time to go over all of this. But he, of course, remembered you and remembered your story. And, you know, Lori and I have been speaking to you for a couple years, and it's just so frustrating. So can you tell us a little bit about if you have any support? Do you have anyone in the legislature? Are there any Utah politicians or any officials who understand your plight and who've said, hey, let's find safer ways of controlling these weeds and these pests? Is there anyone?
No.
Not
It's
a one.
sad. There are better solutions, and that's what should be being used.
But they have not, they've been very anti stop spraying.
And we need to do better ways, because that's the only way we will save our air, land, and water, and the people and the animals.
Well, as you know, I have a background in organic land care. And the reason I went to get the training was because I worked in my own city of Irvine, California. And quite some time ago, around, I think it was 2015, we got the city to approve an organics first policy citywide. All of our parks, all city properties, they use organic methods first. They're allowed to use stronger chemicals if they must in case of an emergency, but they haven't really had to. And there are ways to treat weeds and treat pests that are smarter, that are more conscious of the environment, of what they call, the downstream effects, right? So the effects
Yes.
on people like you, there are safer methods. And I did speak with you, and we did some research on safer methods for mosquito abatement, for example, when your city was going to buy new trucks.
Yes.
And you went forward and you brought them these options. And actually, in fact, organic methods are more effective than these chemical methods where they spray the fog all over the place. They
Yes.
poison the environment and spread it everywhere. And if the mosquitoes are flying at that time and they get hit, then the poison works. However, it doesn't tend to get to their larvae. So
No.
you just get the next batch the next week. Whereas organic methods get to the larvae. And
It's true.
so they're actually safer for the environment, safer for the residents, and more effective. And
Yes.
you brought this information to your city, and
Yes.
what was their response? Did they
They
say
just ignore it. They just go on with the chemicals and chemical salting and
This is the way we
trespassing.
do it, and we get this, and the state is the one that's directing us to do it that way.
And their job is to protect us from these chemical onslaughters.
Well, it seems as though the issue is they're considering the health effects of the mosquitoes as posing a risk to the community.
That's
But they're
true.
discounting the fact that the chemicals are also a risk to the community.
That's true.
When I was growing up, I lived in Lakewood, California, just a slight few blocks away from the Los Angeles River. And they treated the gutters with vegetable oil. And they'd come around and spray in front of our houses and everything, and the larvae would suffocate because they couldn't get through the surface tension of the vegetable oil to get oxygen. And it worked great, and it was just vegetable oil. I understand there's been one county here in Utah that's been doing that too. It would be a great thing to have all of them learn that.
What county is that? Can you think which
I
county
do
that
not
is?
know. It's been long enough ago with my that I can't remember it, but I just knew that for a while they said they were doing it.
And they
I
need
don't
to
know if
put,
they still are.
they need to put back our natural predators. They have killed them off. They can do a lot of taking care of the mosquitoes.
Yes, I
Bats,
mean,
dragonflies.
there's certainly a lot of that. When you take away the balance in nature, sometimes you create, in fact, usually you probably create more problems because you get rid of that balance. And when you get rid of all bugs, then when the bad bugs are a problem, you don't have their predators anymore. Even bird populations are going down because we're getting rid of all the insects. So we have a reduction in birds. Birds would normally help control insects.
Yes.
Birds and bats are virtually gone. And we also had the Utah chub. They are raising them here in Juab County because they're an endangered species. And we have the threatened species, the spotted frog, that is virtually gone from the areas where I used to find them.
And we need to protect them.
They're not here. And I talked to some landowners, and they said we haven't seen one for years since they've been spraying.
Wow. Well, I'm really happy that you have your group of Utah doctors who are on your side and who are holding rallies and doing things around Utah to raise awareness. I mean, at least you have that. At least there's someone on your side. I have to say, in all fairness of your city officials or the county officials, I've never met a person who intentionally wanted to hurt someone else with these pesticides and herbicides. I think in their mind, they're thinking, well, it's the most effective method. And they might even be thinking of budgets. They might think, well, it's economical or whatever, but they're not considering the needs of all their residents. When you go forward and you produce medical documentation and you say, I really cannot support this, please don't spray these products. Please find smarter methods. I wonder.
The CDC has said it's the least effective, least efficient method of control.
Oh, the fogging, mosquito fogging?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. That's the fact. That is true. And they should be using safer and more effective methods.
Yes.
I mean, it's just common sense. But I think that what we need to do is raise awareness so that
Yeah.
other people in your community and other people throughout Utah understand these things are happening, and they think, hey, wouldn't it be nicer if, you know, we didn't have people applying these dangerous products around our families too.
And there's safer ways to do it all. We don't have to use the pesticides that are toxic.
There are safer ways. Can you talk about how you brought the science forward that we discussed, and alternative methods of caring for mosquitoes or managing mosquitoes, and you brought it forth to the city council meeting? Is this how it went down?
I've been to both city council and county commissioners. I have, they've been offered help for free from experts in it.
From around the United States.
From around the United States. I have tried everything. I said, please, can you tell me why you won't use non-toxic methods? They exist and they're what should be being used. And that is on record that I asked them about that.
Do they answer? What do they say?
They said the state sells it to them, so they're going to use it.
You asked about the science of it, and I am a scientist. One of the things that I learned when I had to go on a thyroid medicine is I asked, because I have family members that are on it, and every friend I talked to, somebody in the family was on it. I said, how many do we have in Juab County? And 3 separate pharmacists and pharmacist workers said we have about as many on thyroid medicine as we have on blood pressure medicine. Well, blood pressure medicine is about 1 in 3, 33%. And the thyroid medicine across the United States, when I looked it up, was 4.5%. And so I was alarmed, and I told them that. And just few weeks ago, one of the county commissioners emailed or texted to the pharmacy and came back and says, that's not true. But I scientifically researched it out and I got it from 4 different people before I said anything. And just a few weeks later, a new article came out that says this mosquito spray is causing rheumatoid arthritis and osteoarthritis because it's lowering your thyroid hormone level so it can't work to prevent the diseases. And I told them that, and it didn't seem to make much difference.
My dad is a biochemist. He also taught physics, and he was offered a job by the LA Crime Lab because of his expertise. He turned it down, but
I was involved in air pollution testing.
Yes, he did that
and helped reduce the air pollution in the Los Angeles area by a large percentage by just adjusting the oxygen in all the boilers of Southern California Edison, at the time the largest power company in the world.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And so many times, Blaine, the answer is like that. Like, it's not that hard. It's not that much more costly. It's just a question of choosing, different methods and putting your thinking cap on and being open-minded to different kinds of methods. Do you have other people in your community who stand up with you when you go to meetings, or
we're working with a few more right now, but we had a lot of our friends
that have passed
away, and some of it's related to what they were exposed to.
I'm sorry.
And some with 4 and 5 different cancers on a block that was sprayed up and sprayed back down because it was a dead end street, so they got double doses and things like that. Inability to eat, just like our daughter, losing weight, having to have surgeries, and trying to stop the effects of the spray. So
do they at least consider your safety? Can you ask them not to spray in front of your house or directly on
They
property?
will lie to you. They have multiple trucks. So he said and lied. I have the lies under oath and in other ways, because I went for a temporary restraining order, but he lied and said he was staying away from me. But I have neighbors that were sprayed that are really close to me, closer than he said.
And the logs for that year showed that the other truck sprayed. He didn't spray, but the other people driving did the spraying, and he said he didn't do it, And that was what was accepted, that he didn't
So-
spray us.
They'll just lie, and you sit there and say, hey, I need help. I don't want you to spray. And it drifts long distances. People don't know it's been radioactively tagged to go clear across the Pacific Ocean. It goes long distances.
All of these products do. I know
Mhm.
herbicides drift, dicamba drifts up to 2 miles if it's humid.
A
You know, it
long
just-
way.
And they said
It
they didn't even have to give me an organics on my own property. I can't eat anything but a few organic fruits and vegetables. And so I can't even grow anything on my own property to survive.
We would bring it to her to eat, and her nephew would bring it to him to eat, and she'd get sick every time. And it was raised in Nephi.
Yeah, I can't eat food grown in Utah because there's so much chemicals here.
What about food grown in hoop houses? Have you been able to find farmers? I know there are a lot of organic farmers who don't use any product. Maybe if you could find food that was raised inside.
Well, as long as it's being sprayed for mosquitoes outside, it goes through the oxygen system, and I doubt if it's filtered out anyhow. And she eats only organic food. But we worry about some of the places because of the spraying of the mosquito spray around those areas where they're raising it inside.
Well-
How much of it makes it in?
Yeah. Well, I want to share with you that I have been working with another lady to help her. She lives outside Park City, and I invited her to be on the show today, but she declined. She wanted to remain private too, but she has a property. She's got horses and, pasture and dogs and a fair amount of land. I don't know how many acres, but quite a few. And she has an invasive species on her property called Dyer's Woad, which is kind of, I guess it's kind of a yellow flower with pods, seed pods. And so it's considered an invasive species, and Utah is always trying to get rid of it and control it. And she also, she had this on her property, but she raises bees. So her neighbor came by and asked her if she would spray Roundup on everything. And she explained that she couldn't. She said, because I keep bees, I have beehives. And I guess that neighbor went and reported her to the county. So the county came and knocked on her door. This is about 4 years ago. They knocked on her door and they said, you have to spray Roundup.
That's terrible.
They loaned her a backpack and they sold her the Roundup. She paid for the Roundup, and she had to spray her property twice, and the wind was blowing and it got in her face. And it just broke my heart when she said this, because they made her do this. And
They do make them do it, and that's wrong. We have a
and
relative that had to spray their trees.
I do a survey every year for about 10 days in the spring of how many bees and how many monarch butterflies I see. 4 years ago, there were thousands of monarch butterflies. 3 years ago, there were hundreds. 2 years ago, there were in the tens, and last year I didn't see but 2. And my bees count, there's sometimes this year, as I tried to count, I'd go out and count for an hour on the dandelions and the pond I have, and I only saw 3 in a 5-day period. So I'm worried about the bees going down to nothing, and I definitely am worried about the monarch butterflies, because they're down to almost extinction, and that's what I've observed on my property.
Anyway, my relative, he had to spray his, and he was suffering so bad from the pesticides had done to him, he committed suicide.
I'm so sorry to hear that. When I heard about this lady in outside of Park City, I thought, on some level, if she comes down with cancer and she was made to spray the product, I wonder if there's not some kind of liability, or if there shouldn't be.
There should be.
This suffering is so important to consider for our leaders, for
Yes.
people who lead in the county, people who lead in the cities. There are smarter alternatives, and
Yes.
maybe what needs to happen in Utah is people need to get together and research these methods and get together maybe with people at universities, but figure out alternative methods that won't hurt the citizens
I
and won't
agree.
hurt the environment as much. Well, I wanted to tell you, in my city of Irvine, our population is over 300,000, and they manage 6,500 acres of parkland. There are 11,000 acres of actual open space and parkland altogether. But what they manage is just incredibly beautiful. And since we convinced our city leaders to dump the toxins and to have an organics first policy, our parks, our city is more beautiful than ever. And they decided to spend a little more money, but they decided it was worth it to protect the health of the citizens. And we're going on almost 10 years now, and it's going strong, it's going fine. And it took a city manager and the mayor and the city council being willing to make that decision. And I will tell you, in terms of mosquitoes, they are not allowed to fly over our city or fog our city without the mayor's permission. And to my knowledge, they haven't ever needed to. They educate the residents not to have standing water, and they use organic methods if ever needed. And so we just don't have to have the fogging. We don't have to have the airplanes that used to fly over at night or the fogging trucks. That doesn't happen in our city. So our city cracked down and they said, you know what, we're going to figure it out. We're going to use smarter methods. And
Yes.
this can happen in Utah so that the guys at the county can still get their job done. You know, there are other solutions, and my hope is that you can get a large enough group together in Utah and raise awareness throughout Utah that maybe safer methods should be used now. And I think that, well, I've been working with a lot of farmers. I work with a lot of what's called regenerative farmers, and regenerative farming is about working from the soil up, focusing on the soil biology and the life of the soil and preserving and building the soil, using animal rotation and crop rotation and cutting out the toxic chemicals. And these farmers are being very successful. They get a premium for their meat or their produce or their crops, and there's higher nutrient density. There's better nutrition out in the soil. They introduce more beneficial insects that just come back. Beneficial animals come back, and the balance in nature is restored. And then because they're not spending so much on the chemical inputs and the synthetic nitrogen fertilizers, et cetera, they are using what they already have on the farm. So they reduce all their input costs. And then in terms of their produce or meat or whatever it is, when they go to market, they get a premium. So they're super happy, and word is spreading that this is beneficial for the environment, for the farmers, and it actually pencils out for them better not to use the chemical.
Yes, I don't want any herbicides or any pesticides, because there's better ways, and it harms people, all of them.
We've been to Irvine, California,
You
to
have
the workshops, and I went once to Florida to the workshops from Beyond Pesticides.
Yes, Beyond Pesticides.
And
they're fantastic.
Irvine is a beautiful city.
It's beautiful. Our parks are amazing. And when the babies go play in the parks, or the dogs play in the parks, or the wild ducks come in and swim in the streams, we don't have to worry.
And we have a man that was responsible for getting most of the universities in New Mexico to use the natural methods. And their people are extremely pleased with what they see happening there. And he's dedicated his life now. He watched his friends die from spraying the poisons.
The bug man.
The bug man.
Yeah,
and
he can be on Facebook.
Many conversations.
You can meet him on Facebook. He's very open. His name's Richard Fagerland.
Fagerland.
He's fantastic. And yes, he's thought it out. He loves nature, and he's figured it out. And people in Utah can too. And this is my hope.
Lower their taxes.
Sorry?
It can lower their taxes. They're spending so much on pesticides. It's ridiculous.
Well, they are spending a lot, and sometimes other methods are more expensive, and sometimes they're less expensive. So overall, when communities adopt these methods, it tends to even out in terms of cost, and it's just worth it. But it takes the community being willing to do it and willing to try it out. And I don't see why that can't happen in Utah. I hope that you will inspire other people to go out in their communities and to meet together and form groups and say, hey, can we try these safer methods?
Yes.
That's my hope. That's our hope of this group, the Wellness Warriors. And we want people to be healthier, not to be exposed to poisons unnecessarily.
Yes, and we appreciate people like you that are fighting for us. We need that.
You can't imagine how grateful I am to have met you and met the people that are working like this. It goes back to the very first when I was contacted by a man named David Pimentel. He was the Senate and House science representative. He was over the science for the Department of Commerce and the people in the United States Senate and House. And he's from Cornell University. He wrote the book, The Encyclopedia of Pest Management. And he wrote me a personal letter and said, people in Utah should not be spraying, period.
That's right. There are other ways. And wouldn't it be beautiful if we could just clean up Utah and clean up? My goal is every state, actually. But
Yes.
you know, I would really like to see Utah be able to use safer methods for their residents. I think your story is so touching, and I'm really sorry for all the suffering you have gone through. I can feel in your hearts how much you've been battling. But speaking of government, let's go to a clip. I have a video clip of the regenerative farmers. This group is called Regenerate America, and they are in there talking about the Farm Bill in DC, and they have advocates and lobbyists who are out there working to educate people that there are alternative methods to just picking up the dangerous chemical products, and that this needs to be supported in the Farm Bill. And so could we play that video now, Leighton? Is that?
And Kathleen, just so you know, when you're ready for those documents, they got those uploaded.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Lori. Okay.
Today, we are surrounded by the consequences of degeneration: flooding, extreme drought, fires, habitat loss, extreme temperatures, and failing crops. We keep trying to sustain what's broken, but it's not enough. As a farmer, I have hope because the solution is right under our feet: our soil. I know that together we can regenerate America. Regenerative farming starts with rebuilding the soil, but it doesn't stop there. Combining indigenous knowledge, holistic management, and cutting-edge science, regenerative agriculture improves food quality and security, increases farmers' prosperity, and repairs land function, providing countless environmental solutions. So how do we make regenerative agriculture the norm?
The Farm Bill. Despite its name, it goes far beyond farming. This taxpayer-funded bill, costing a whopping $856 billion, dictates how and what we eat, the purity of our air and water, and the management of over half of our nation's land. It impacts all of us daily and future generations to come. The current Farm Bill does not do enough to support all farmers and ranchers in their transition to regenerative agriculture. And each year, we are still losing an equivalent of 4 pickup trucks full of topsoil per acre. My fellow American farmers and ranchers are ready to move towards regeneration, but we need the Farm Bill's resources and support to do it.
Regenerate America is bringing together an unprecedented coalition of farmers, businesses, nonprofits, individuals from every corner of our country and all political stripes. Together, we are making sure farmers like me and the people we feed get as much voice and representation in D.C. as corporate agribusiness. If you believe in a healthy, abundant future
For yourself,
Your family,
and your community,
join us in calling for strong support for regenerative agriculture in the Farm Bill.
It's inspirational, isn't it?
It is.
Great.
That was fantastic.
So there are farmers out there fighting to reduce this dependence on the use of chemicals. And these chemicals that people spray in their gardens, Roundup, or around schools or around cities or around your house, the mosquito control, all these chemicals are also used on farms. And municipalities and universities use these products, as do farmers. And I think there's not enough of a connection between the two about how these same chemicals used either in farms or around our communities are all harming our health. And they're actually depleting our food supply of nutrition. Roundup, glyphosate, which is used everywhere, is a chelator. And what it does is it gloms onto minerals. So the minerals are still there, but they're not available for your body. So they take nutrition out of your body. Once it's in your body, it can pull minerals out of your body that you need. We need minerals. We need food with very high, very dense nutrition, and the regenerative farming is the answer to that. So and touchingly, there's one farmer in the group who lobbies in DC. His name's Wadi Yang. He's Chinese, and he's the most fascinating guy. I met him at a farm conference, and he told me that he was amazed every day that he immigrated to the US. This is so touching. He immigrated to the US and he goes to DC and he advocates for this. And he's amazed by the beauty of our government that he would have the freedom to go and advocate for this. Because he said in China, if he tried to do such a thing, he would go in prison. So we need to use the freedoms in our precious country to raise awareness and stand up for these farmers. This regenerative movement is about to really take off because it's penciling out for farmers and word's getting around that they have healthier farms, healthier soil, and they have something to leave their kids that's not completely chemically ruined. So this whole awareness is so important. But I have to tell you that discouragingly, there's a rider that was inserted into the Farm Bill, which the chemical industry, they always push for these kinds of things, and it's called HR 4288. HR 4288 is something that was inserted by Mr. Johnson of South Dakota and Mr. Costa, who referred this to the Committee on Agriculture. And what this HR 4288 says is within the Farm Bill, although there's a good section for the regenerative farmers, this says within the Farm Bill that communities should not have the right to pass any regulations or city policies that say you can't use certain very strong chemicals around the residents. It limits communities' ability to clean up what they're using and use safer products. It says that you can only use what the EPA says, and you can't go beyond that. And then the lobbyists go to the EPA in DC and they pass everything. And with the Roundup lawsuits, we have seen how truly weak those regulations can be, and that scientists can be bought by companies like Monsanto who write things up and stick in their own rules and regulations, just whatever's convenient for them. And then they get scientists to sign off on it, and the EPA goes along with it. So we need to be careful to preserve our rights in communities to have safer policies passed and to protect citizens. And I
Can I
also
ask a question about that?
Yes.
My question is, why are they taking away citizens' rights? Those rights don't belong to them. They're protected under the Declaration and Constitution. They're to be removed from office when they want to impede those rights.
Yes, well, they try to slip these kinds of things in all the time, and they don't usually pass. But we need to remain aware, and we need to write to our politicians, whoever's representing us, our representatives, whoever we can think of, and tell them, please oppose HR 4288 within the Farm Bill so that our communities can retain our rights to pass regulations and policies that do more to protect our citizens than the EPA is currently doing. And the other thing I wanted to say to you is there was good news for those of us who are not fans. I don't know, Leighton, do we have the picture of the Bayer lawsuit, the $2.3 billion award that just came down last week? another gigantic award that a jury awarded, because when juries hear these stories of basically the corruption behind the scenes that have gone on in the approvals of products like Roundup, they're just going to keep punishing this company until they do something about it. And so, now you have people who will buy Roundup, use Roundup, they won't even think about it. But then, these lawsuits are going on, and citizens are coming forward and they're saying, no, we're bringing suit, and here's a science, and you're going to pay more and more. Now, this 2.25 billion is on top of the 10 billion Bayer has already agreed to pay out for Roundup. And there are thousands of lawsuits coming behind this. So eventually I'm hoping they stop. But the unfortunate thing is their other best-selling product is a glufosinate based, it's called Cheetah Pro. And that's not safer. And I get a lot of calls from residents all over the US where these things are applied and then the dogs die. My neighbor just had to incinerate her puppy 2 days ago because they applied glufosinate and then her dog died. So dogs get sick, dogs die. They're particularly sensitive to this chemical. So, when we go forth to our communities, the idea is not to substitute one bad, dangerous chemical with another one. The idea is to use smarter methods that are safer for residents. And this is what we're all about. That's what Lori's about. It's what Patty's about. It's what Jessica's about, all of us. We just want people to be safer and healthier in their communities. So, I would ask that people who are listening, please contact us, contact our group, the Wellness Warriors, and start to form bigger groups, because we need to educate and inform our city and county leaders everywhere and ask them to please opt for safer methods. And it starts with awareness. It starts with education. And I walked into a Tractor Supply store in Hebert one time. I was looking for a nozzle, and there were two men at the front door when I walked in, and one was seated, and they said, we'll help you, over this way, right to this aisle. And I started saying that I was working with a non-toxic herbicide because I was so concerned about Roundup, and I was trying to help people find other solutions. And they started helping me. And the taller man, the one who was standing up, said, hey, I can't remember the name of the guy, but he said, oh, this guy knows all about that. And I go, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, he's suffering from cancer, and he used to work for the county, and he was one of the applicators of Roundup all around the county. And he told me, he said, yeah, I was the guy in the truck that held the wand out and sprayed it at the side of the road. And he said, now I'm dying of cancer.
Yes. And I met Rachel Carson when I was in high school.
Oh my
Listened
goodness.
to her speak. And it was a life-changing thing. And Gordon B. Hinckley, a former LDS prophet, said she is a true hero for what she did to stand up for the people and say, this is not right. And I think of all the praying mantis egg cases I used to put out, and the trichogramma wasps, so that they could get the bugs off my orchard without having to spray and do anything else. And they worked, but being sprayed with the mosquito sprays, taking care of a lot of those, and the herbicides has taken care of a lot of them.
I suffer so horribly with all the pesticides, and I wish people understood. We need to do better ways. We need to treat people better and help each other and use non-toxic methods.
And I don't know if the studies have been done about what these products going up into the atmosphere have to do with destroying our ozone and all the other things that are causing our environmental problems now.
I'm positive that it's doing more, but the list of things that these chemicals are doing, just, in terms of our health, our bodies, our rivers, the wildlife, like deer and birds in the wild. I know naturalists, the deer and birds are running around with tumors, if they're in farm country around where they spray these fields. And like, we're just poisoning everything. We're hurting everything. We're hurting the water supply. And the interesting thing with the regenerative farming, the more I learn, the more fascinating it is, because the healthier the soil is, the healthier the plants are. And the more plant cover, the more healthy plant cover you have,
Do
The
you know the
more
people
the
that,
plants work with the atmosphere to create rain. Did you know
Yes,
this?
and the more lack of drought we have, that we
You
need
cause droughts
to
by having
stop.
barren soil, and the chemicals cause the barren soil. And then when you have these plants that are planted within these, unhealthy fields, you can put in chemical nitrogen so it looks green, but the roots aren't growing deep. They're not really reaching in the ground. You don't have the balance of minerals and bacteria and fungi, and they get mycotoxins, and they have, different illnesses on the plants, and then they buy more chemicals to treat the illnesses. It's sort of like it's a vicious cycle. And
yes,
these regenerative farmers, they are experts because they need to be, and they're being very successful, basically going back to the ways of our grandfathers.
yes. And do you know the people that established here were told to keep the soils pure?
Of course they were. God made the planet, right?
Yes,
Even if
yes,
you're not a very religious person, somebody made our beautiful
yes.
planet, and we should protect it.
Hey, we
We
should
should
protect it and
protect our
take care of
children.
it.
We should protect our animals. We should protect our residents.
Mhm.
And sometimes I'm surprised when, religious leaders don't speak out more against these chemicals, because the chemicals are really unhealthy for the whole system that we should be protecting.
Yes, we got to protect it. We got future generations coming. And the more the onslaught of pesticides gets worse, the more they will suffer.
That's right. And even just thinking in terms of farming, the farms that we have, the farming families, they've had these families for generations. They want to pass them on to their children. They can't pass them on to their children if they're completely poisoned and denuded of healthy topsoil. Like
Yes,
the miracle is that we can use different methods that are not so chemically intensive,
that's true.
that restore things to the way they should have been. And
Yes,
you can grow your herd of cattle, you can have healthier crops with less disease, you have less need for chemicals, the fewer chemicals you apply. I'm sure you know this, Blaine, being a scientist, that it's all a cycle. It all relates to one another.
yes.
Everything has its reason for being here, and we need to keep everything alive and keep everything going.
I was shocked at one point they put on their website they wanted to eradicate mosquitoes. I'm like, that's not what you're supposed to be doing.
And
Well,
how many mosquitoes does a bat eat? A lot.
a lot. That's
And
true.
I don't see any bats anymore.
You can put out bat boxes and they'll come back. If you have a
Yes.
healthy ecosystem, you can put bat boxes out and they'll come back. You can use
Yes.
those little cups with the organic, mosquito control that control the larva. There are other solutions, and
Yes,
we just
and-
need the willingness to look into them.
And we need to unite. I mean, the more people that unite, the better off it will be, that they will understand that there is better ways and we need to be using them.
That's exactly right. I understand. Lori can correct me if I'm wrong, but we did build a house up in Hebrew and we weren't able to keep it. We're going to have to look for another one. But when we were building, Lori and I went to the county office, and from what I understand, they give away Roundup and 2,4-D for free because they're concerned about the invasive species of weeds in Utah. And they give these things away for free so people will go out and spray and get rid of the invasive species. And I just have to wonder if there's not a smarter way to control these problematic species in the
And
state.
they
There
have-
is a better way. And ours has done a handout in the past too. They have handed out and they have been fought really hard on that too.
Yeah, I've seen people spraying the edge by their lawns with their little kids crawling through the Roundup. I've seen that happen many times, and it just doesn't work. It's so scary to see those poor little children being exposed.
I think, why don't they cut the weeds and stuff like that? Even with the invasive species, there's better ways to take care of it than they're using. And I want to know who decided that dandelions are a weed that they need to get rid of. They attract bees, they do something beneficial.
bees and monarch butterflies by the thousands.
They
Yes,
have
and
vitamins.
well, the other thing is that weeds are often a symptom of a problem in the soil. They're a symptom of an
Yes,
imbalance in the soil, and a
that we
lot of
need to
times
fix.
you can reduce weed pressure by examining the soil and having simple inputs like calcium or gypsum. There are sometimes simple answers. And
Yes,
so
right.
I just wonder if we can't put our heads together with some of the agronomists in the beautiful state of Utah, in your universities or scientists or farmers, and see if we can find safer solutions for the population, especially when it involves children. That is my pet peeve too. When I see kids, exposed to these chemicals, it doesn't make
It's sad
sense.
to me how many children have been ruined by the pesticides. They're known to cause ADHD and autism, just to
Which we
name a
have
few.
rampant in
There's
Utah.
so much health problems it causes, but those are just a couple.
And sadly, I know that's true. I'm involved with a lot of parent groups of kids, nationwide who have autism and other conditions, and these parent groups who get together to try and find treatments to improve their lives and improve their conditions. And there are actually a lot of solutions out there. There are a
Yeah.
lot of solutions, but it's been proven over and over again that these environmental toxins do contribute to the explosion of children's health issues.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I've seen them spray the native thistle, and within 20 minutes, I've seen the cattle grazing up in the forest eating them and the deer eating them. And it worries me about our whole ecosystem.
Well, hence the tumors that the naturalists are seeing of the deer running by, with the big tumor on their neck, and the birds, it's just, I don't know. It seems so short-sighted to reach for the bottle because it's the quick answer, and then you can go home and have a beer or whatever. I'm certain that there are better methods that we could use to protect the environment. And I just wonder at what point, given the lawsuits and given everything else, and the decline of our nation's health and so many people with chronic health issues, at what point does the awareness count in decision making?
Yes.
I walked into my hardware stores just a couple of days ago, and I read on the internet that Roundup was to be pulled from the store shelves by the end of 2023, and there were 10 times more stuff there than there was last year.
Do you know?
Still there.
Do you know what they did, Blaine?
They slightly changed the formula,
Yeah, but
from what I understand.
It's terrible. In Austria, they did this. I don't know whether I guess the government probably required them to do it. And what they did was they pulled the Roundup formulation that had the active ingredient glyphosate in it, and they switched that active ingredient for acetic acid, a very strong acetic acid concentration, which is vinegar, which seemed great, but it didn't work. And I knew that this new Roundup that was selling over in Austria wasn't working. And I thought, wow, what are they going to bring to the US? If that doesn't work in Austria, what are they going to do over here? What they did was they swapped out glyphosate for dicamba, or dicamba for glyphosate.
And that
Dicamba is
stuff's
also
horrible.
awful. It's also
Yeah.
awful. So,
That's part of they use up our canyon is it has dicamba in.
yeah,
It's
so it's
P plus D.
it's unfortunate. It's not any safer. I don't want any consumers listening to us to be fooled. It's still not safe. And FYI, the lawsuits are about the entire formulation of Roundup, not just the glyphosate. Glyphosate's already a carcinogen, but the entire formulation of Roundup altogether is 1,000 times more toxic.
Yes, absolutely.
And I want to know who gave them permission to experiment on us. They don't have legal right to experiment on people.
The EPA.
With carcinogens and a whole bunch of toxic chemicals.
Well, that's what the lawsuits are about. The lawsuits are about how Monsanto at the time falsified the documents that they submitted to the EPA, and then the EPA approved it. And not only that, at least in California, they're trying to get the Roundup bottles to have a danger sign on them or some kind of warning.
Yes.
And they've been able to fight that. So they still don't have even a warning sign. And that's because the EPA just goes along with them. In spite of the fact that these lawsuits revealed that the scientific documentation on safety, I'm using finger quotes for those who are listening, safety, was fraudulent. Uh, it's not been proven safe, this formulation. And in fact, it's a carcinogen. So what happens is they keep losing these lawsuits when there are competent lawyers who are good enough to stand up to Bayer's fancy pants lawyers, and they win. The more wins, the more losses they suffer, maybe the more awareness will grow. But my fear is that they'll just substitute Roundup for some other
That's
nasty
what they'll do.
herbicide.
They have people need to understand there's a revolving door. The chemical industry goes back and forth between the FDA and EPA and that kind of thing. And
the industry.
You need help from people that care to actually protect the people and the animals and the environment.
Well, this is why it's so important that we act locally, because our Secretary of Ag in the United States is Tom Vilsack, and he's been our Secretary of Ag forever under several presidents. And he's the definition of the revolving door, because he works in the government, and then he goes to lobby for Monsanto, and then he comes back to the government, then he lobbies for Monsanto. He's an attorney and a lobbyist, and this is for some reason allowed, but it's we have to stop it. And I think that our best bet is to work locally. So I think that what you two are doing is so important.
Thank you so much.
We will continue, and we're never going to give up. And we thank you for the ability to be able to share with the people. And I hope those that are listening will study it out and find out that what we're saying is true.
It's our pleasure. We are the Wellness Crusaders, and the reason we have that name is because we want to help people like you be well and safe.
We'll keep going. It's a matter of life and death for everyone.
So many.
Yes.
It'll eventually affect everyone. It starts with some, but the more you spray and the longer you spray, the more people get affected.
It's true.
So Blaine, I have a question and a comment on our interview today, and I'm hoping that you could let Kathleen know too what ended up happening and our listeners. So you were talking about an opt-out bill, the form that the residents of Nephi would be able to like fill their name and say, I don't want my yard sprayed, or I don't want you spraying by my yard. Could you just talk a few minutes? Can you share that with our audience, please?
The city council met a number of times and wrote a letter that they sent to us. They didn't present it to us in a meeting. They sent it to us by mail that said, we have recommended that the county mosquito spraying do two things. And one was that they have an opt-out form on their website so people could not be sprayed. And the second thing was that they would notify the city when they were spraying, and so they could post it on the website. And neither of those happened. And we went back to try and talk to them. And the city council said, we've already dealt with that. We're not going to talk to you about it in a meeting. And so nothing was done. And I talked to one of those that was on the city council that signed that letter. And she said all he had to do was do what he promised to do, was to put those things on the websites and to have an opt-out form, and neither has ever been done, and that's been years ago, and we still have the letter.
I would like to say something. People need to know how, where, when, and what they're being exposed to get proper medical attention. That is a must.
I've asked times what they were spraying with in different places, and most of the time they won't tell you. And how do you tell the doctor what you've been exposed to if they don't tell you? Spraying dozens of times on Interstate 15, going up and down, all you see is a flashing light and a big hoot spray thing spraying the side of the freeways on both sides. And there's no way no warning that you can get off and go around, or no warning to tell you that you're being exposed to these herbicides that they're spraying on the freeway. And they're doing it continually. And it's scary that they don't have to notify anybody except a little flashing light on top of the truck with the big tank on back and the stuff flowing out both sides.
And Blaine, can you tell us the name of that local restaurant where we were standing, where they spray when people, and your daughter included, when they were spraying these poisonous toxins? What was the
I
name of
was
it?
going to look at the new name. It's changed ownership recently. It's right across the street from the north end of the main park on 6 North.
What was
It
former
used to
name?
be Reed's Drive-In, but
Okay,
It was Bard's before
it
that.
was Bard's Drive-In before that, and Reed's
It's
Drive-In.
Nebo Queen now.
Nebo Queen. That's right, it's Nebo Queen.
okay. We will try and see if we can get some information, just so that they have it. So maybe they can help, help you request as well. But are you ready to go for Q&A, or do you want to keep going, Kathleen? Your choice.
It's fine if we have callers, yeah, absolutely. We invite people to call if you want to put the number up. And
Then, yep, Leighton's going to put it up. So for those of you wanting to call in to ask questions, the number is 385-899-2134. And we are ready to take your questions. And until we get somebody calling in, Kathleen, I don't know if you have any follow-up comments or questions for Blaine or his daughter.
I just want to say, for people who are listening, I mean, not just for you and your daughter, Blaine, but for people who are listening, if you can form a group and get the ear of your community leaders, somebody, one city council member, one mayor, one county advisor, anyone. There are professional experts in landscape and weed control who can be consulted about finding methods that are non-toxic for the community. There are experts available, and I hope that many of the decision makers, if they hear your pleas or anyone else's pleas around their community, that they consider finding different methods for taking care of these pests and these weeds that protect the residents. It's not worth the cause to destroy the whole environment, just because you want to get rid of mosquitoes or a certain weed. How about finding better answers? I sincerely hope that leaders will be interested in consulting with experts who may have learned alternative methods to what you learn from the chemical dealer down the road, or the extension, or whoever it is who's got, the chemical industry's backing. I hope that we can get the experts out front that have alternative methods, so that we can have county and city leaders consider this, even at the state level.
Yes.
That would be great. And we do have a caller. Leighton, if you want to bring the caller in for them.
Yep, let me bring him right in. Hey, Joe, you're on live with the Wellness Crusaders. What question do you have for our three lovely guests today?
Hi, Leighton, it's still on this.
Hey, Jill. Hey, you're on live with Kathleen and Lori and Blaine. What question do you have for them today?
Oh, I just want to talk to them and ask them, what is a really good solution to this problem?
It depends which problem. Like, it depends whether you're talking about mosquitoes or weeds, and which species of weeds, and what the situation is like. So, there's not one blanket answer. There's putting on your thinking cap, looking at the situation and saying, what's a better way to control this pest?
Yes.
That won't expose people to toxins. So I am NOFA accredited, which is Northeast Organic Farming Association. I went through that course, and I work all the time with farmers and organic landscapers who have alternative answers that, it turns out we don't need these nasty chemicals in every case. Maybe if there's one rare emergency, possibly, but the casual application of these products day after day is really a shame. Really a shame. They are not the only answer. It is not better living through chemistry. We're learning that the dose does not make the poison, which is the other pitch they put out there. Actually, these chemicals in parts per billion and parts per trillion, so in tiny quantities, can have serious effects on our bodies, down to the cellular level, down to the DNA. They can affect us for 4 generations after this one. I mean, all of this is heavily proven in the science. And so there's really, in my mind, there's no more excuse for not paying attention to what you're using just because it's convenient. So the solution is to consult experts who are trained in organic and safer methods, and to ask the professionals, to call professionals in. And in my city, when my city converted, we brought in a professional. We got a scholarship, and it was through Beyond Pesticides. Actually, they sponsored having an expert come in and consult with our city. And then our city landscape supervisor, Dennis, he was just willing to go for it on his own. He had some ideas and he went for it and he figured it out. And then lo and behold, we got an award from the California State EPA, Department of Pesticide Regulation, for our amazing IPM in Irvine. It's been very, very, very successful. Nobody's going back. Nobody's going back to the chemical means where, on this day and this month and this week, you're going to apply this chemical and then you're going to apply this chemical just because that's what the calendar says. Like, that's not the way to really landscape. You have to pay attention to nature and find out what nature needs and why you have those weeds in that place, and then control them in responsible methods that don't harm residents, like Blaine and his daughter. It's really frightening.
Do you know in Disneyland they even use garlic to control it? You can plant stuff.
In Disneyland, Disney World.
They use garlic. You can plant stuff to control things.
They use cats too. They let the cats out at night at Disneyland. They let cats out to control rodents. So I mean, a lot of farmers use owls, Lori.
Yes.
Voles, critters in the fields. You can put owl boxes out. Blaine mentioned bat box for mosquitoes.
Goats eat weeds.
Yes.
I had 2 ducks that I had behind my one house, and they would vacuum my lawn and take care of every bug that was in it. They went into my garden and never hurt the things I was growing, but they sure took care of the bugs.
They fertilize it. They're featured. That movie, I don't know if any of you have seen the movie Big Little Farm. What's it called? The Biggest Little Farm? Is that what it is, Lori? And they have a problem with slugs, and they want to cry. It's so terrible. They have this huge slug invasion, and they figure out, ducks, and they let the ducks out, and the ducks fertilize the soil under their crops and eat all the slugs. It's amazing. There are always answers like that are better than pesticides and chemicals. I
have one more.
All right, well, that next question you have, Jill?
Yeah, I have another question for Blaine. Does Blaine feel that if we were to get some local people together here and talk with all the evidence that we have, with enough people in Nephi to it that they want a solution, if we could present a solution, do you think Nephi would get behind us as citizens if we could put something together with enough sign on to it? Because obviously, there are solutions that we need the Nephi people to demand it.
Yes, I know, and from what I see with our county commission and things like that they do not want to change. They want to just keep spraying.
But people can change things
But
if we unite.
people can change their minds. If more than us are doing it, I'm sure it would have much, much greater effect. But we've been trying, and we've been going to a lot of the meetings lately and trying to get them to change their minds. And we get 3 minutes to speak, and then it's doesn't seem to convince them because they keep saying things that they like spraying.
We're gonna
They said that you could drink 50 gallons of this stuff. It says right on the label, you cannot drink any without calling poison control.
You could drink 50 gallons of mosquito spray and it wouldn't hurt you.
Well, maybe you should call them out and just ask them to do a demo when you're sitting at a town meeting.
I actually told them that I found an article, a man had ingested a little over a half a quart and was unconscious on life support in the hospital for 10 days. And
We
it
just
didn't seem to even faze him. He almost died.
we need to get a
Well,
bigger group.
Yes,
We need to help you. We need to help you to get a bigger group.
we would appreciate that. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much for all of it. And thank you for your question.
Yes, thank you so much, too.
Well, my one last question for both of you is, like, do you think it's the city government, your local government that's blocking you?
I can't understand what
She
she's
wants to
saying.
know if your local government is blocking you.
Pretty much. Yeah, they
Block us. We've fought so hard.
we can't even talk to the newspaper unless it's in the meetings on the minutes, because they will not publish, because the Department of Health man
That
badgered
was
them.
not a doctor.
There was not a doctor, badgered them till they would not print anything we wanted
Because
to
they
print.
don't want the truth out there.
And our we get messages written from the Utah State University former extension man that we should keep on spraying.
Well, thank you for calling in, Jill. And Kathleen,
We're
if
gonna
you're ready,
keep
we'll go to
fighting.
the next caller.
Yep. All right. I'm going to bring the next caller in. Thank you for calling, Jill, and please make sure to check in at 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time during our show. All right. We should have our next caller in, Jessica. Oh, hold on, let me bring her in. All right, Jessica, you are live with the Wellness Crusaders. What question do you have for them today?
Hi, Wellness Crusaders. This is Jessica. I am one of your Crusaders. But I wanted
Hi,
to
Jessica.
because my family, the Taxmans and the Carters, actually owned a lot of land in Nephi. They were farmers. We're from the distance now, but I can only imagine what is going through their heads right now. They're turning in their graves, hearing what's happening to their beautiful town. They were so well known in the city of Nephi. But beyond that, I wanted to know, what can we do in our own cities to make a difference? Is there a letter we write for our legislator? Like, what action can we take besides using safe products in our yard? What can we do to try and shift and create a change in our own hometown?
Let me answer that. I co-founded an organization called Non-Toxic Communities, and you can go to that website, nontoxiccommunities.com. And there are a lot of ideas on that website. And I've stepped down. I'm just an advisor now for that organization, but we put a lot of information up there. Science you can bring forth, information about forming groups. I mean, this statement, for Jill's question about, when Blaine answered and he said, well, we only get 3 minutes to talk and then that's it, and we move on. In my city, when we had the legislation passed, we had Boy Scout troops, we had Little League teams, we had groups of mothers and children who were fighting cancer. We had all kinds of groups coming in. And so by the end of the session, they had to limit our time. But when you have like 50 people that get 3 minutes each, that's when you start to get attention. That's when they start to pay attention. And my hope is that they wouldn't see that as an annoyance, and that it wouldn't come to that point for them to consider other methods of weed and pest control. But that's how you do it. You form a group, but you must always be respectful. You don't want to look like the crazy person, right? Just be very level-headed and very respectful and very professional. And always, at least for me, this is true, always keep in mind that that person that you're across from also cares about their family and their children and their health. They just don't realize that the product they're choosing, that they perceive as being more convenient, is not safe, might be causing them harm, might be harming the environment. It's not like us versus them. It's a question of education and educating them so that they understand that they're also endangering their family, their pets, their friends. And sometimes it takes a lot of patience, but always stay very level-headed and very professional and very respectful, because they're caring about their environment too. From their point of view, they think, well, if they don't take care of the mosquitoes, people will get bitten and they'll get West Nile or whatever. and they don't see any threat from the chemicals. So it's just about educating and understanding where they're coming from and raising awareness. And the one other thing that I'll say is that our mayor in Irvine spent a lot of money on political analysis, where they do those huge surveys and they figure out what people are thinking, what people want. And she said, for whatever issue ever in all of her political years, the most powerful issue to get voters on board, so powerful that people will switch parties, is the pesticide issue. People want to be safe.
Agreed with that. And as we're waiting for the caller, Blaine and your daughter, if there is anyone from Nephi listening on this, and it's recorded, it's going to go viral, what would you like to say to the people who run the town of Nephi, who haven't listened really to you at this point, but now that we're getting the truth out there, what would you like to tell them?
We can't hear you, Blaine. Are you muted?
To do things that are going to make us safe and not do the things that are going to cause us problems.
I want them to understand that non-toxic methods is best. You don't have to harm anyone to get the problem taken care of. Everybody deserves the right to be protected.
We've had people here die of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. We have a lady that was our physician, and she's in remission right now, but she says they sprayed around her continually around her house, and she has non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So it does cause problems.
Now, I want people to understand too, we don't want our youth to smoke, but we'll spray toxic chemicals and carcinogens on them.
That's a valid point, daughter of Blaine. Kathleen, there's another caller.
Hello, thank you for calling in.
Yep, let me bring them right on in. Give me a quick sec. All right, Gary, you are on the phone with the Wellness Crusaders. What question do you have for them today?
How can I mitigate past damage to my land by spraying these chemicals on it? Is there something I should be doing to pull it from the soil?
Yes.
Do I have to worry about my well? These are the kind of things that I would like to know about.
What is your situation? Do you have a ranch, or is it just a residential plot, or what kind of?
Yeah, I have like 9 acres, and I'm not sure what the previous owners did to the land. We haven't sprayed anything since we started, but of course, since we took the property, but I'm still worried about past sins, I guess.
Well, I'll tell you that in clay soil, the half-life of glyphosate, which is the active ingredient in Roundup, is 21 years. So you're right to think about this. If you reach out to the Wellness Crusaders, I'll send you information. I'd be happy to send you information. I know scientists who sell very inexpensive bacterial formulations that you can sprinkle out over your land, and the bacteria will treat the glyphosate and get rid of it. So you can absolutely reverse it. And then in terms of restoring the health to your soil, you can do soil analysis. And then once you have that science, you know what inputs you might need, and you can consult experts to build up the health on your soil. If you have animals, it goes faster. You don't have to have animals on your property, but if you rotate animals on the land, that helps to restore the soil, the plants, and the biology. If you don't use animals, it's still possible. It's just a little bit longer. But yeah, there are definitely products. The first thing you would do is test and see if there's an issue. Test the water in your well, test your soil to see if there's glyphosate or other chemicals in the residue, like sitting there. And then I have a scientist you can speak with, or there are different companies out there that sell remediation products that will pull it out. astoundingly quickly. Yeah, and fungi, like bacteria, all that soil biology, all the things you find in nature, those things are our friend. And we're so busy killing it with all these farm chemicals and pesticides and antifungals and whatever. When we use these products, we're destroying the balance that's out there in nature instead of looking at what might be imbalance in like an imbalance and then fixing that, which fixes the whole system together. Sometimes we just reach for chemicals, which end up making all the problems worse. So I love your question, and please write to us, and I'd be happy to put you in touch with various experts. You can get your soil tested very inexpensively locally through the state universities. But if you want to go deeper and do more elaborate testing, Lori's done that for her own property, which is strictly organically maintained. She's tested her well. It's a very intelligent question to ask, and no matter what you run into, there will be answers to restore the health of that soil and your property.
That's great. Thanks. I appreciate the information, and I'll email you guys.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yep,
So
thanks.
Kathleen, as we wrap up, Blaine, I just wanted to make one other suggestion that Kathleen and I would be more than happy to coordinate some type of a workshop. I mean, we'd be happy to, rent, a facility. I don't know, the town hall, if they have a room, but we would be happy to come down and educate the people of Nephi in hopes that we could get a little bit more traction on this. If you think that there would be other people in your community that would want to listen, even if it's just five is better than none. And I think that's how you end up spreading the word. And with Kathleen's knowledge, that's really where it starts, because the poisons honestly do start in the soil.
That's true.
That's true. Well, we'll have to look into that and do what we can.
Thank you so much.
We've just appreciated you people and what input you have given us. And these people that have called in, I hope people will be willing to talk to their city council and their county commission and say, we need to do more to stop the poisoning.
Yes, you two are so brave. You are so brave. And I feel like if you bring in the right experts to provide the answers that your elected officials need in order to get the job done, if we can give them other solutions, they may be convinced if they would be open to considering alternative solutions.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
I think when you have your program with Dr. Mensch, you are going to hear some extraordinary things that we would like to see done, because he is a fantastic man. And his
He sounds like
association, and I've met a number of the doctors too, as they attended rallies on the state capitol to do something about the air pollution.
fantastic. Oh, you're so welcome. And I'm just very sorry for your suffering. And I hope we can find answers that make everyone happy. I will tell you, in my city, when we first started coming forward and we started saying, please stop using these toxins, we weren't that well received. We kind of got the brush off too. But then as our group grew and we came to them with solutions in hand to help them and to say, we understand you have a hard job managing this city. We understand you have a hard job managing these weeds, these mosquitoes, whatever the concern is. It's never us versus them. It's let's work all of us together to find a smarter solution that benefits our town.
Like I said, I was never bitten the nights I irrigated all night when we had the birds and the bats and the predators that took care of it, and the orb spiders out in the gardens that I don't see a one of anymore.
It will be wonderful to present them with some alternatives. I've tried, but maybe we can keep trying. You never know when they will listen about mosquitoes and weeds and all the pesticides, that they don't need to use them.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on our show. We're so grateful. Lori, I don't know if you want to close or add anything.
You know, I do want to add something that Blaine, when we were talking today, and the town of Nephi gets the free toxins, the free Roundup, the 2,4-D, whatever else, the Liberty, all the other materials that his daughter was showing. The product may be free, but the cost to human health is not free, because there are thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars into medical bills trying to heal their daughter. And they are not the only citizen there in Nephi. So if you think that the cost of the state of Utah, who wants to hand you over something that's poison, and you can read the label for yourself, if you think that the cost of the product is free, it's costing your health, your freedom, and the ability to not make a choice to protect your family. So I hope that everybody on this call walks away with something. And if you need any further information, you can get a hold of Kathleen at info@thewellnesscrusaders.com. You can email us in. There's 4 of us in our group. There's Kathleen Halal, myself, there's Jessica Endicott, and there's Patty Reese. And we are here to support you and provide solutions. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, Blaine, and your daughter. It was wonderful to personally meet you today after 2 years of chit-chatting with you on the phone. And we will continue to fight this battle for you. That is our promise.
Thank you, and we just look forward to everything we hear about you.
And you have a wonderful evening. Thank you, Kathleen. The questions were awesome, and the additional information. And again, all the stuff that Kathleen showed, if you want the videos, go ahead. You can send her an email at info@thewellnesscrusaders.com. And I hope everybody has a wonderful evening.
Yes.
Good night for now.